So teaching yourself anything in the internet age should be possible, I believe. And if you clicked on this video, there's probably a topic that you want to study. However, with the overwhelming amount of information online, it's hard to discern what to learn and what to leave out. Do you start watching random videos on a certain topic, moving from one shallow video to the next, jumping from one interesting topic to another without fully ever grasping all the information that you could have learned? Creating your own learning paths is something that every student, and especially every PhD student, must be able to do, since there's rarely a set trajectory for exactly what you want to learn. So if you've ever wanted to learn a certain topic without knowing the clear resources, build a project that hasn't been done before, or create something new in a world where that hasn't been created yet, it is really important that you set out your own learning path. And I believe that being able to learn how to learn is one of those rare abilities that if you build it in the 21st century, it can really help you move beyond what most people can achieve. One way to develop this skill, of course, is through university, as there they train you literally to learn. However, with all the resources now at the tip of our fingers, I truly believe that you can learn by yourself basically anything that you want to. So let's get straight into it. So as a PhD student, what I've really noticed that what separates successful students from less successful ones is their ability to learn new information by themselves and really search for this information, systemize it, and then grasp the roots of all this information. Right now, there are a few topics that I want to learn about for writing a grant that I'm currently submitting for the Dutch Research Association or Research Council. And I thought it might be interesting to kind of lift the veil of how students and how PhD students and researchers kind of make their own learning path and kind of set out this learning path. So how to get into a new topic without knowing exactly what resources are out there, decide what's worth focusing on and what is better to leave out, and also in general just to create your own learning curriculum for any type of topic that you want. So if you have a semester, which we basically still have, all of us, until Christmas, it would be really nice to just with like 1-2 hours a day fully try to get to a certain stage of a topic that you would want to get into. So I wanted to structure this video around a topic that I've personally been learning a lot about for my postdoc, and that is computational psychiatry, and especially the ethics of computational psychiatry. It's a topic that's not the main topic of my postdoc, but it's something that I personally find really interesting because I work in computational psychiatry, but the ethics of computational psychiatry is something that's not really discussed that much, and that I found personally quite a problematic topic and quite an interesting topic for this reason. So I wanted to learn a lot about like what is out there, what have previous writers written about this, but I found that it was really hard to find clear resources because computational psychiatry is a very new topic. It kind of came about in the age of the internet, and furthermore the ethics of computational psychiatry is even more niche. So designing your own curriculum is something I think I've kind of become better at over time, and I kind of want to take you along as to how I did it, such that if you have a specific topic that you maybe want to learn about, a literature topic, a certain skill, or a certain course that you have to learn, then this could be really helpful. So I also made a similar video which was Structure Over Chaos, how to self-learn like a PhD student, and I do think that video grasps at the root very much of self-learning. But this video, I want to go a little bit deeper with a truly clear example that I have used myself on how to learn and structure learning certain topics. So first of all, what I always talk about before you dive into any learning journey or a learning topic is that you need to have the why very clear as to why you want to learn about this topic. So basically, if you have it clear for yourself, I truly believe that the chances of you learning this topic will increase by 100-fold. So most likely you have a topic that you want to study about. For myself, as I said, it's the ethics of computational psychiatry, but truly try to define why is this topic so important for you. And this can be many reasons. It could be that you just want it for your career. It will be the next step in your career and will help you in that sense. It can be that you want to have something creative to do in your free time. Thus, you want to learn about a certain topic in the arts or literature or something along those lines. Or it's because a little bit what I have, I feel a topic that needs to be studied. Like I fundamentally believe that ethics of computational psychiatry should be studied by someone. And I personally just, have a very intrinsic motivation as to learn this topic. But having this clear before you start and writing it down even is really helpful, because as you go on your learning journey, you will forget the reasons that you've started on this journey in the first place. So if you don't have a topic that you want to study, even though I'm doubtful about that, but if you don't have a topic, something that sometimes really helps me is pay attention to your jealousy. And this is something I learned from Lamott by Bird. And she kind of said that paying attention to what we're jealous about in our environment can actually teach us something as to what we're missing in our own lives. So imagine you go to a conference and you see a fellow PhD student presenting something and you think like, wow, I'm really jealous of the way they present. Then maybe learning how to present very well is a learning topic that you could dive into. Or if you go to an art museum and you think like, oh, I wish I could paint like that, then maybe learning how to paint, even a starting journey, can really be beneficial, or can be the topic that you can dive into. So it can be one way to find a topic that you're interested in. So afterwards, you've written down this why you wanted to learn, you have a topic that you want to learn. So then we can really start with this learning plan and build it up from the fundamentals up until a really clear day by day or week by week plan. So first of all, with a learning plan, it's good to break the topic down into its fundamentals. And it depends on how big the topic is that you want to learn. So for example, if you want to learn about machine learning, that's a ginormous topic that actually has a lot of subfields that you could learn about. So supervised machine learning, unsupervised machine learning, different types of algorithms, and having it very clear what these topics are allows you to then define a curriculum for each part of the topic. So for me in computational psychiatry, that's the general field of computational psychiatry that I want to learn about. But specifically one subtopic of that is the ethics of computational psychiatry. So that is then one subtopic that I want to learn about. Then afterwards, it's the art to create your own syllabus for this topic. And how I usually do it is I start with a syllabus online if something like this exists. So for example, for machine learning, there are many syllabi online from different master's programs, different bachelor programs that teach you machine learning. And you can just Google Harvard machine learning class 2025, and then you will find actually the curriculum for that class. But if you, like me, chose a topic that probably doesn't have a syllabus online, it is good to find a fundamental resource that has a syllabus similar to it. So I can show you, as I talked about before, this is Computational Conversations in Critical Psychiatry. And for me, this is not necessarily a book on the ethics of computational psychiatry, but it is a really good starting point for general conversations in critical psychiatry and how to be critical about certain progress or certain decisions that are made in psychiatry. In this book, they have a list of the chapters, obviously, but also resources, which I found personally really helpful. So at the end of every chapter, there's suggested, I don't know if you can see it, there's suggested further reading and references. So this for me was a really good starting point to start. Also afterwards, when I looked online, actually I did find a syllabus that I can put down here if you're interested. So this syllabus was on psychiatry in general and kind of the ethics of psychiatry or psychiatry over the years. So I think that was a really good starting point for me as well. So afterwards you have a syllabus or a starting syllabus that you can start from. Then you copy that syllabus and add it to your own resources. So the way I usually do it is oftentimes in a syllabus online, you find kind of the fundamentals that you should learn if you want to learn about these topics. And then you have deeper dive topics that you can get into. So I would definitely note down the fundamentals, and the deeper dive topics you can kind of leave aside. In general, there are many resources, names given. I would note all of them down. The way I do it is usually in Notion. That's not because I don't think Notion is necessarily the best. You can use different types of note-taking systems. But in Notion, you can create these quite beautiful looking curriculums or spaces. And I think that's just a fun bit to do. So I afterwards have then a list of the most important topics. Under those topics, I usually have the most important subtopics. And in those subtopics, I have a list of the people that I should read up on or certain work that I should read up on. From the people that I should read up on, I will read or find their latest work. So their latest papers they've written. Maybe per person add about 5 papers. And this entire process might sound really overwhelming when I say it to you, but creating a curriculum is actually quite hard. So this on itself might take about a week. So if every day you spend an hour on building your curriculum, this can take a week up until a month. And that might sound really long, but the process of creating your own curriculum will actually already teach you a lot about the field. and will already show you a lot what's out there. So afterwards, you then have built in a Notion, potentially your first version of your curriculum, and that can be a really good starting point. Afterwards comes the next step, and that's really what I kind of deemed as intellectual gardening. So I got this from a blog, from Staying Sharp Requires Intellectual Gardening, and I really like that term because I truly believe that kind of updating your own knowledge process, etc., is a little bit like gardening. So there are different steps in this gardening process, and I hope you stay with me. But the first is weeding and pruning. So you try to filter out the noise, unlearn outdated ideas, topic or opinion, etc., etc. So it is because oftentimes when you get a curriculum or you get a syllabus even from university, there are certain topics that are already a little bit outdated. So for example, especially in fields like neuroscience that move really fast, topics that were written on maybe 20 years ago could already have been refuted with the current research. And it's still good to read some of these fundamental resources, but it's also good to find a paper that has been written a little bit more recently and see if the knowledge still holds, such that the knowledge that you're learning is up to date. Of course, if you're doing a search on literature, this might be a little bit different, as that knowledge stays a little bit more constant over time. Also, something that I find really interesting is this idea of cross-pollination. So if you're learning, for example, right now, the ethics of computational psychiatry, I don't necessarily only have to stay within the ethics of computational psychiatry. I can look also in the ethics of AI or the ethics of general machine learning. And those topics are actually really interconnected with the ethics of computational psychiatry. But even a little bit further from that is the ethics in general on different type of populations, different types of groups. And all of this can teach me more about the topic that I'm currently learning about. So definitely also try to branch out a little bit outside of the specific topics that you're learning about and try to read quite wide at the beginning, such that you can see how ideas from different fields interconnect. Then composting, which I really like as well. So these are your daily study hours, the daily notes you take, and these really become raw material for the future. So I've talked about before on this idea of a second brain, and the idea of a second brain is that everything you read, everything you watch, everything you listen to becomes material for the next project that you're working on. So in the second brain, you really try to, every time you read, put that information somewhere in your second brain, in this case a note-taking system. I don't think you have to be so systematic about it. I'm personally not that systematic about it, but during my PhD I really did try to note down almost everything that I learned, at least in a short snippet in my Notion. And the reason for this is over the time of your PhD, which is about 4 years, you will get so much information, and a lot of times that information is not directly relevant to what you're learning about right now. So it could be that you're learning about supervised learning in year 1, but you only apply this technique in year 2. And then it would be quite sad if you lost all that information that you learned at the beginning of the year in the second year. So that's why every time I encounter something new, and even if I don't think it can be immediately useful, I do try to take a note somewhere or try to note down what I learned, what I thought about the topic, and also if I think it can be useful in the future. So in general, this whole idea then of intellectual gardening is to create this environment that's beneficial for learning, just like a plant that needs an optimal environment to grow. And I really do see this learning process as kind of like tending to a garden. And the reason for that is that it's quite iterative. So it's not that you create your curriculum one day and then you stick with that curriculum for the next 3 months. I think as you're learning more about a topic, your curriculum and the topics that you want to learn next also grows. And a lot of people want it to be really systematic and from the beginning already completely drawn out exactly what to learn. But I think the learning process itself is a little bit this building the curriculum, and over time how this will grow will show you how you've grown as well as in this topic. So some apps to use that can really help you is Notion, of course, that I talked about before. Research Rabbit I really like. So this app that can allow you to connect papers together in this kind of graph structure, which I find personally really useful. Goodreads, this might be a new one, but I think Goodreads is really good to track down what you've learned, what you've read over the years, and also see if there are new topics you want to read about. And also finally to create or curate your own reading list. And one way I do this is through PaperPal. So PaperPal was also kind enough to sponsor this video, and it's this amazing reference manager. So I will tell you really short how I use it in general for learning, but also actually just for writing papers nowadays. So in general, I collect all my references in a reference manager called PaperPal. And honestly, everyone I know in academia uses some kind of reference manager. And that's because, as you might have noticed, the number of papers that you have to read, even for a learning project like this, is extremely extensive. So I really like PaperPal because it's in general really easy to learn, and it works together with Google Drive such that it stores all your papers there, and that way you cannot really lose them. So sometimes when you change from reference managers, you will lose all the papers that you've collected, and with PaperPal that's not really possible. So I can show you how I use it. So in general, you can search for books and articles directly in the PaperPal interface, which is very easy to navigate, I find. You can even search for PDFs and look for full phrases, something that I personally really love, since it's often hard to exactly remember what you were researching or what you were thinking about, but you can often remember a specific phrase. I usually keep my papers in folders dedicated to specific projects. So this time, if I'm working on the ethics of computational psychiatry, that would be one specific project. But you can also add labels if you prefer that system. This lets you find papers by a topic, which is really nice if you're building a knowledge bank, for example, for a specific topic. You can also use or add new papers using PaperPal's browser extension, which lets you import articles directly from databases like Google Scholar or PubMed, something that I use all the time. You can even save papers to PaperPal directly from Google Scholar, or you could even save multiple papers or multiple search results at once with the PaperPal browser extension, which is really handy if you want to collect hundreds of papers at one time. It's also extremely easy to annotate your articles, such as I'm showing here, and cite sources directly where you're writing in Google Docs. With the PaperPal plugin, with just one click, you can cite your resources and sources correctly and give credit where credit is due. This is good if you sometimes, like me, forget where exactly you got something from. It's really important to immediately note down the citation. Finally, PaperPal has also added some new features like PDF night mode, great for late night reading when you're a little bit tired, and also bulk PDF download, as I said before. And so now also for my subscribers, PaperPal has offered 20% off a 1-year PaperPal personal subscription with a coupon code valid for 3 months from a video release. And start your free 30-day trial today, no credit card needed, and the link is on the screen. Thank you again for PaperPal for sponsoring this video, and let's get back to it. So I also want to talk a little bit about a topic that is personally then really important for me, and that's to create a reading list. I personally love creating reading lists for every topic that I'm learning something about. And I want to show you my reading list for the next 5 to 6 months. So this is not specifically related to the topic of computational psychiatry or the ethics of computational psychiatry, but it is a number of books that I've gotten from friends and family over time, and I wanted to make time to read every one of them, and also to kind of broaden my knowledge a little bit about English literature and some of the topics there. So I will show you some of the books that I have here. So one is the Chiswick from Shakespeare, which are really cute, nice book. The next one is Equality by Thomas Piketty and Michael Sandel. Michael Sandel is one of my favorite teachers online. I really like how he gives lectures. If you're ever interested in any type of ethics, highly recommend looking at some of his lectures. Gathering Moss, this is a natural and cultural history of mosses. Seems very random, but I really like this writer. I think she's very good. Also, I have the Tao Te Ching, this very particular maybe, but it's in Portuguese, and as I'm learning Portuguese, this was a really nice book that a friend gave me. And lastly, I have this Dream Count, which has been quite high on my reading list as it was really highly acclaimed. So this is in general, usually for a couple of months, I also have a reading list, and sometimes I do create a reading list for specific topics. So when I was just getting into the ethics of computational psychiatry, I had a dedicated reading list for that, but I've already almost reached the end of that. So now I'm reading a little bit wider again, but I would be really curious to see your reading list as well. So if you're creating this learning journey, let me know down below what kind of books you're planning to read, what kind of things you would recommend for me to read next. And I would be really interested to see that. So a few other things with reading is, one of the things I always recommend is not to just passively read, but especially if you're reading for learning, it's good to actively read. And that's by asking questions, recall and summarize. So after you read a book or even a chapter, so for example, in the Critical Conversations book, I always, after I read it, I note down all of the things I want to learn more about and some of the questions I have, and see if I can learn more about that in another book. Also, another technique that I found really interesting if you're trying to learn on a certain topic is to read two books with opposing views. So for example, book A might say that schizophrenia is caused by genes, and book B might say that it's mostly caused by the environment. And it's interesting to follow both arguments and see in which bits you agree or disagree, and kind of form your own opinion like that. I think this is a really good form of critical reading that you quite often learn at university, but that we don't really apply that much in daily life anymore. Afterwards, it's also really good in general for learning to use spaced recall. So try to remember after you've read the book also a few more times what the topic was about, maybe discuss it with a few friends, have a little book club. I think that's always really fun. And finally, after reading a lot of these books, try to create something small from it. So a summary, a sketch, a code snippet, a diagram. So I've talked about this in general on this channel, but we have the tendency to want to consume a lot and not want to create a lot. And I think oftentimes why we want to learn a certain topic or a certain skill is because we want to use that skill, or we want to use that topic in our daily lives. And oftentimes we love learning about a topic, but we don't really love the creation process. And I think it's really good to kind of force ourselves to create something after we've consumed a lot of information. And that can be done by creating a YouTube video, for example, but it can also be done by writing a quick blog post or even just a short summary note in your Notion. And this kind of gets you out of this mindset of constantly consuming new things to a mindset of, okay, whenever I try to consume something, I also then try to create something. And of course, if you're just reading for fun, this is not necessary. But if you're reading for learning about a certain topic, I think it's really highly important to also use that skill afterwards. So finally, I also want to end a little bit on how you could use then the curriculum that you've now hopefully built over a couple of weeks to actually every day sit down and learn about these topics. Potentially in the future, I want to make a little bit a deeper dive into this topic on how you can create time to actually sit down with your learning curriculum and actually use it to learn a certain topic. But in general, I think it's really good to build systems, not just habits. So you have this learning system, and a learning system is tools, routines, the environment, which you all can set up beforehand that allows you to learn this certain topic. So for example, every day after university, I would often sit down for 1 or 2 hours and then study. I think as students, we naturally have these moments in the day which allow us to study. But as we progress or as we become older, it's harder to make time for this, but it is possible. So right now, for example, I often do it in the weekend. On Sunday, I take about 3 hours and I go to this little cafe, which I really like. And there I try to learn or try to study a certain topic that's not necessarily mandated by my PhD or postdoc. And this is really nice because it really becomes a routine that I go to this place, I set up everything, the specific environment, the specific things I order, and then that is my space that I will learn a new topic. And I think this can look very different for everyone. It depends a lot on your family situation, where you're living, how your day looks like. But even trying to find 10 minutes in the day that you set up something like this, where you sit down with your curriculum, can be really beneficial. I think it's also really nice to balance play with obsession, because I do think learning something new can be really nice if you allow yourself to be a bit like playful and really dive into it, and also to allow yourself to be a little bit obsessive. So as you might have noticed, I got a new camera. And when I just got this camera, I was really excited and I wanted to learn everything about it. And I kind of allowed myself to build this momentum and just really play around with it, really see what I can do. And really over time, I kind of do it like this instead of having this really structured every day. I need to sit down from this to this time and learn about this topic of camera skills. But this is really nice. I think this momentum of learning a new topic can really allow you to just be a little bit obsessive and kind of deep dive into a certain topic. So to end this video, I'm really curious what you're gonna learn. I'm really curious why you clicked on this video and what is motivating you right now, or what you're really curious about. So let me know down in the comments below what is a skill that you're wanting to learn. To end this video, I can tell you that current skills that I'm working on are Portuguese. So I really want to get a little bit better at Portuguese. Hopefully in the future this will happen. And that's because I also am traveling to Brazil soon. Something else I want to do is learn more or read more literature, as I said. And finally, of course, learning on the ethics of computational psychiatry. I hope to also at one point in my career to share an article on that topic. But I'm curious what you're going to learn and hope to see you next week as well. Bye.